Every character, location, or experience you've read about in my crime fiction novels holds a piece of reality. I'm Helen Taylor. Welcome to the story behind my stories, the video podcast where crime fiction meets my authentic experience. Here, we delve into the real-life inspirations and intimate stories that shaped my novels. Discover how my everyday encounters, adventures, and travels translate into tales as gripping as they are genuine. The story behind my stories goes behind the words on the page to reveal the backstory that inspires my writing. Hit follow or subscribe and ensure you're part of this journey. Hi, welcome to episode 4 of the story behind Connecting Trains. So last week we started talking about the characters and how I built them up. This week's blog also goes into that, and the sort of my motivations behind. I wanted to build a team that complemented and contrasted with Goodwin's own skill set. One, so that I had all those other avenues to go down, but two, teams are built like that. So if you get the opportunity, check out this week's blog post, as that talks a little bit more about my experience in managing teams, and when a team works together, that I believe is very much down to the manager, and it is the responsibility of the manager to see the skill sets and use them to the advantage of, in my case, the software development, deployment, support, analysis team, and in Goodwin's case, the murder investigation team. So last week we looked at Paul Neal's and his motivations and things. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Steve Payne. Let me read you the extract from Connecting Trains where he's introduced, and then I can talk a little bit more about him after that. Steve Payne was exactly what his name suggested. He would pass on grunt work and tended to be lazy, but he was a good officer and he had been around the block more than once. His experience made him invaluable at times, but his negativity, that manifested itself when morale was starting to wane, could do incredible damage to a team. I'm going to stop there. So you probably, if you ever work in a team dynamic, you probably recognise those traits. Most teams have somebody who is always a glass half empty sort of person, and it does cause problems in teams and things. But I actually really like Steve Payne as a character in my books, in the UK based ones where Goodwin is working with the team, because I don't know if it's because it gives me an outlet for some negativity, because I'm naturally a glass half full, quite abundant, positive person, and always look for the positive in things. But as we're all made up to a greater or lesser extent of all of these traits and personality traits, then having someone that can be negative in the team allows me to do that. But in most of the teams that I've ever managed or worked in, there has always been somebody who is always, I don't want to do that job, or does it so poorly that you wouldn't give it to them again, or moans and whinges more than they work. But they do all have redeeming qualities, because they wouldn't have the job or have got as far as they have if they didn't have redeeming qualities. And like I say, I believe that is the responsibility of the manager, to manage that within the team. So, as that's just said, he'd pass on the grunt work. He came across as lazy. If you read the book, some of that is that he will sit in the incident room with his feet up on the table, giving a lazy, laid back sort of attitude. And because he doesn't want to ever do any of the grunt work, that also comes across as being lazy. But he's sociable, and because almost all teams have somebody like him to a greater or lesser extent, he then connects with that, and it's actually often his negativity that allows him to connect. So where you see it, where they walk into a room, that it's almost like they can detect like for like, and so they can start a conversation based on moaning about something, whether it's a course they've gone on and they're moaning that the person's not arrived yet, or the traffic getting there, or the train being delayed, or anything like that. Just something down to start talking about with somebody, and that feeds. And so as long as that then doesn't become just a moaning, whinging session. But the way I see it with Steve Payne is he starts with that negativity, that negative thing that allows him to then connect with people. And once he's connected, then he's got that connection, which maybe other people don't take the time or build up because they're not the same. And Goodwin recognises that in him. So Goodwin had DCP Steve Payne as a member of a good many of his teams, and he felt that now he recognised the symptoms as they came on and could remove or mask the disease before Payne infected the others within the team. Understanding Payne's motivation and attitude meant Goodwin could utilise his knowledge and experience, but it did mean it added an extra level of stress to Goodwin's management of the investigation. So when I say it's up to the manager to manage their unique traits and what they do, it is very much a management of them. Their personality traits that they cannot change, or don't want to change, or don't even recognise. And I liken it to a disease, an infection, and because that negativity in a team, if not managed properly, can really, really bring morale down. It can destroy a team working dynamic, which then I go on to say he had to keep on his toes with one eye always on Payne. A lot of the other DIs refused to work with Payne because of the detrimental effect he could have on a team. But in some cases, it came down to their inability to manage the differing personalities, motivations, and character traits within the team. Goodwin always worried he would miss something while he was preoccupied with team management, and that possibly it would be easier going without Payne on the team. but he had come to respect the grumpy little man, and on too many occasions his knowledge or flashes of insight had turned the investigation around. In Goodwin's mind, what Payne gave to an investigation outweighed the pain he caused. So, there you get the insight that Goodwin, in say tie-dye and a lower goodbye and future international crimes that he solves, he's on his own and he can call on the members that he needs to help from afar. But in the UK, he doesn't have a choice. This is his team, and because he can manage Payne and he does recognise him, then he utilises that. So I'll read you a couple of other extracts where you get glimpses of Steve Payne throughout, but the reason that I like him is because he is so different to some of the others. He is a character that you do get in most teams. He's not negative because he's negative. He's negative. Well, he's negative because I need that to influence the team dynamics. But because, like I say, he makes connections, Goodwin does use that, and he recognises that whenever they need to liaise with another team or other forces, he will call on Payne to do it. Now, because Payne is sociable, despite his negativity, he's not down and depressed and nobody wants to be around him. His negativity is just looking on the downside of everything. It's not a constant thing, and so he has contacts everywhere in all the different forces and in all the different teams, and because he has built those relationships that may have initially started on some negative thing, he is able to continue those connections. He's always off after work having a drink with somebody from some team, but that benefits the investigation when needed, and Goodwin knows that, and he uses that any time when there needs to be social, because not everybody else in the team can do that. So this is Payne's unique trait that adds to the investigation, and that is why Goodwin has him on his team and keeps him on his team, because he can use that. The other members of the team, like Niels, he's a little bit younger, he's a bit naive, he's not built the relationships that Payne has. Horton and Angela Phillips are young graduates. They haven't got the relationships or have developed necessarily the skill set to build those relationships, and a lot of those relationships in those other teams are from Steve Payne's working generation. Goodwin has a lot of those relationships, but managing the investigation, he doesn't necessarily always have the time. And then Penny is very inside herself. She's inside her head. She's analytical. She's not quite as sociable as Payne, and so he is the social one, the one that Goodwin will send off, go and chat to these people about whatever, where they need to get information, but in a relaxed way, not an interrogation or investigation as much, more relaxed. They're more likely to talk to Payne because he connects on the level of negativity, which I don't know psychological wise, and I'm not a psychologist or anything, but why that attracts people. It's the same with anything, whether it's book reviews for my books or any sort of reviews. When you read them, the majority, if you're more likely to complain than you are to thank people for a good job done, or which is why we all get so many emails asking us to review things, because if you've had a good experience, they need those, because our nature is to complain or moan about things when they're not right, not to praise when they are right, because we expect that. So that I think is where Payne is able to connect with people to the benefit of the investigation. Okay, so let me just do you a couple of other examples of Payne in action in the team in connecting trains. So this is an extract when he'd been given something to do that he didn't want to do. Right, I already heard from Penny. The parking tickets don't give us anything. What about you, Steve? How did it go on the locals recognising any vehicles? Because Goodwin had sent him off on his social thing to chat with the locals about whether they saw any vehicles. No joy, replied Payne. Want to expand for the team? No one saw anything. I told you it'd be a lost cause. Goodwin found himself wondering if Payne had actually done anything at all. He stopped the thoughts. Although he knew Payne was lazy and really hated the sort of task he had been given, he would never not do it. It might be half-hearted, but he would have made some effort. Goodwin would have that confirmed if he asked to see his notebook and when he got the report, but asking to see it in front of the team might diminish Payne within the team, which would not help the investigation. He would wait for the report, but felt sure that there would be one, and Payne would have done his job. So this gives you some insight that if Payne thinks it's not worth doing, whilst he will do it begrudgingly, and he will do it properly and produce a report and update and everything, but he's not prepared to do that in the meeting if there's nothing had come of it. So I don't want to give too much of the story away, but they are trying to work out how these burglars are getting to and from the crime scene each time. So he continues after the bit I just read. So from the interview we did with the kid, we established that he followed them to the end of the road and could see them for a fair way along the next one, and they didn't approach or get into any vehicle in that time. They must be parking a fair way from the crime scenes. Or not using a vehicle, suggested Dean. They are pretty spread out, though, across the whole area, countered Niels. Trains, said Payne. Of course, said Goodwin. I wasn't happy with the vehicle thing, but like Niels, couldn't see any other explanation. He turned to look at the map. He already knew the two in Woking, one on White Rose Lane and the other just off it, were within 10 minutes walking distance from the train station. The one in West Byfleet was less than 10 minutes from West Byfleet train station, but he was less familiar with Guildford and had to check out the proximity of the burglary to the station. There, it was also less than 10 minutes from the train station. This was why Goodwin allowed Payne on his team. He made the negative comments, but on occasion he got the flashes that gave them the impetus to solve the crimes. Goodwin can feel that this was one of those times. So that's a time where he contributes. He's just given his update where he's dead miserable and no, I told you it wasn't going to work, and then bang, he comes up with the sort of break that they need at that point. Then a few paragraphs further on, we're still in the same update in the incident room for this. Neil's, as I said last week, is like Goodwin's right-hand man, and he's writing up on the board all of their tasks for the day. Neil's wrote it up, Goodwin wrote it down on his own list and moved on to his next one, because Goodwin writes lists all the time. This job he would give to Payne. Payne's forte was socialising. Even with his negativity, talking to people and making contacts was what he did best. And this one called for those skills. Steve, can you contact all the local DIUs with the details we have and see if anything new comes to light that brings us any more crimes? We don't want them, but if these boys have done it before, they may have left us something to go on when looked at with what we know now. Yep, no problem. Goodwin knew he was basking in the praise of having found the method of transport, but also his negativity tended to disappear when he felt they were moving in a concrete direction rather than clutching at straws. Steve, let's go to the DIUs outside our force too, the border forces, Thames Valley, Kent. Spread the net a little, yeah? Got it, Payne nodded as he wrote. Payne would have friends in most of the divisional intelligence units within the Surrey force, and if he didn't, outside of it, he would relish the opportunity to make new friends to gripe about the world too. Goodwin knew he would do a thorough job on this one. So that is sort of the crux of it, and the dynamic that Payne brings to the team. His negativity, can be detrimental as it was at the start of the meeting, where he's like, I told you so, it was no good, blah blah blah. But his insight, which it's almost like it gives him a bit of a boost, and as at the end of that, he relishes the connection with people. He's not a paper pusher, and anything that is going to mean he's got to do a big report or spend a lot of time in the office, that's when he goes negative, which is often the case if there is a lot of interviewing of people and nothing comes of it, which was the first task. This one is catching up with old mates, and but he was the best one because he's got the contacts for it, and that's why Goodwin has him on the team, and I have him on the team so that I have the ability to have that negativity if I need it. And not everybody is positive, not everybody can be positive. They can't all have sparks of intuition and understanding and solve the crimes just like that. So whilst he has traits that I dislike and are very much not me, they're valuable in the investigation, and he is a valuable member of the team. But he does, as in the first extract I read you, does require a little bit more managing than maybe the other members of Goodwin's team. But for Goodwin, it's worth it if he has the sort of insights he has and the connections that he has. So we will see how Payne pans out in Lethal Leith Hill and has any more great insights. So that's it for this week. Next week we're going to move on to Penny, who is the data analyst, tech expert, and those are the three key characters, and then after that we'll look at the newer members of the team. This is Niels, Payne and Penny are all people that Goodwin's worked with before. So tune in next week and go and read the blog post about team dynamics and managing a team, and I will see you next week. Bye.